welcome to this great webinar here that you're about to experience. Modernizing Cybersecurity, hosted by Oasis Solutions with our friends from Advanced Business Solutions. We're going to start out today with a little poll as people are coming in, and we'll address the poll and also display the answers, but we want to know, how does your company approach your cybersecurity? Do you have a very formalized written plan? Do you have a strategy, but it's not formalized or hasn't been reviewed by experts like ABS? Or are you just not sure? Any guesses, John or Tucker, on where the percentages are going to fall out?
They usually spread across the board pretty evenly.
Yeah.
Hopefully there's quite a few of ABS customers on there and we have more A's than we normally do. But yeah, it's usually spread across the board. I think Zoom might have changed because I'm able to see real-time responses. I haven't had that experience before.
It looks like we've got some more people logging in here, so we're just going to give everybody a couple minutes to join us and answer the poll. We'd appreciate you answering the poll if you have the time and attention to do so. And we greatly appreciate you taking time out of your morning and part of your afternoon to go through this webinar with us today. My name is Aaron Rosenberg. I'm a partner at Oasis Solutions and our Chief Revenue Officer. I'm joined by John Clark and Tucker Oldham from Advanced Business Solutions, some of my great friends and partners there.
Thanks for having us today, Aaron.
You bet. So let's go ahead and get rolling here. We'll let, as more people are joining, we'll continue to let them answer the poll, and then John, you can address this here in just a sec. I'm gonna move it out of my viewing purview so it doesn't block my screen. Okay, so our results are in. And you're right, John.
That was me on accident. I was a little early on that, but let's go ahead. They are spread for sure. Tucker, any surprises?
No, not at all. I think most of the folks that are on the call are certainly in the small to medium business space, and I'm actually pleased to see the couple of folks that fit into the A column, and a lot of what we have to talk about today is to help them get to that A spot, John.
Excellent.
So as we get going here, and just some of you are Oasis customers, some of you are ABS customers, some of you are both, and we really appreciate your attendance today. I wanted to tell you a little bit about Oasis Solutions as we are celebrating our 30th year in business, our 30th anniversary today. We are a best place to work, and both in the greater Louisville community as well as in the state of Kentucky, and we're really proud of those distinctions, because we know that if we have happy employees and happy consultants working with our customers, we have happy customers as well. And we've been on Best Place to Work nomination and winner of small business category 4 years in a row. We're also really proud to be a Fast 50 company. That's a distinction for fast revenue growth, privately held companies in and around the Kentuckiana area. And this will be hopefully our 5th year in a row that we'll be a fast growth company. What we do is help customers select, implement, and then support their core business management systems. And that space is known sometimes as a value-added reseller, particularly for an enterprise resource planning or ERP application. So we're also really proud to be on Bob Scott's top 100 value-added resellers list, which he publishes every year. And we've been helping customers, as I mentioned, take advantage of the resources that they invest so much money into and time into since 1991. We have a lot of customers here locally, headquartered in Louisville, along with Advanced Business Solutions, but we do support clients across the country, Currently around 500 clients depend on us for helping them support their ERP system. Our approach is maybe a little bit different than a lot of software companies because we really focus on people first and process. And we believe that the software is just a tool that makes your people and processes more productive. So also we believe that who you buy from in the marketplace today is as important or maybe even more important than what you buy. We want to make sure that our customers have the right processes in place, that we're training their people so they can leverage those applications. And we invest a lot of resources into the people that we hire into our organization, looking for folks that have been controllers, CFOs, have run business operations for companies so that they understand business first. And the software is a key component of how the transactions flow within a business. It's really important for us to start with our customers and understand how can we improve their process, train their people, and make sure that they're leveraging those applications. We have CPAs on staff as well. We don't practice tax and audit. We don't do infrastructure, cybersecurity, networking, things that we depend on partners like ABS to do because they do a great job at what they do and we do an awesome job at what we do. We're really proud to have over 350 years of combined experience on staff supporting our customers. As I introduced John here as the VP of Business Development of ABS, as well as Tucker Oldham, the Director of Virtual CIO Services, and let them go through the agenda. I just want to say thanks again for coming on today and talking to the folks that are attending about cybersecurity. You know, we depend on ABS at Oasis and have for about 15 years to handle all of our technology services around help desk support, cybersecurity planning, our infrastructure, our architecture, and they've been a great partner there, and I'm sure they would be for you as well if they're not already.
I knew if I muted myself, I would regret it. Aaron, thank you for the introduction there. 15 years is about right that we've supported you guys. I've been at ABS for 15 years and fondly remember working for Annette as some of my early technical tasks. So it's kind of fun to be in this position, working together as partners, and appreciate you inviting us to talk to your customers and letting us bring ours as well. Tucker, you want to add anything to your introduction before we get started here?
No, it's always nice to be working with Oasis and Oasis's customers, and I think collectively our goal is to make technology help you with your business needs. I love the idea of where Aaron was talking about, where we start with people. I think our ultimate goal is to make technology not a necessary evil within the business, but a true asset. And our partnership with Oasis is a big part of that.
Perfect. So we do want to get to why you guys came, talk about the cybersecurity. I'm going to kind of go through the framework that ABS uses. We use the NIST framework to make sure our customers are at least thinking about the right things. We know that Oasis is talking to their customers about taking NetSuite and Sage out to the cloud. What does that mean about cybersecurity? How do we take a secure journey to the cloud? ABS talks about that with their customers, about email and other things. And then we want to save some time for takeaways and Q&A. Tucker and I do love to talk. I'll be watching the Q&A and chat area when I kick it over to Tucker. So please, as you have questions, chime in, and I'll make sure and bring them to Tucker's attention as he's doing his thing. Let's see, I think I have control here, Tucker.
You do.
There we go. So ABS, what do? We are a managed service provider. Oasis is celebrating their 30th year. We're celebrating our silver anniversary of 25 years. As I said, I've been here for 15, and the vast majority of that we've been doing managed services where we're your IT department or part of your IT department. As threats and security has evolved and become more real for small and medium businesses, we've evolved with that, and we've started putting a great focus on securing our clients better. We're also doing some data analytics stuff and providing 24/7 support to our customers with all their end user support, infrastructure, data, security needs. So I always like to throw a little context of why we're talking about this. It's not just about Russians getting after gas pipelines is the most recent thing, or target data breaches. Ransomware is a humongous business. Last year, it reached $20 billion. It's pretty much scheduled to get even higher than that. We saw a 435% increase from 2019 to 2020 just in the ransomware attacks. Tucker and I saw that from where we sit. We saw a ton of them coming to us, people that are already ransomed or are coming out of a ransom experience, looking for ways to protect themselves. 35% of the victims are the small to medium businesses like Oasis, ABS, and you folks that have joined us today. I would imagine everybody by now knows what ransomware is, but they essentially grab your data, decrypt it, and hold it and extort money out of you. They're asking for Bitcoin or Dogecoin or Litecoin, whatever cryptocurrency of their choice, or yours for that matter. That average cost of just that cryptocurrency is $88,000 on average. That's what was paid out in 2020. While you're held ransom and negotiating the price with your insurance company and the cyber criminals on the internet, companies are down on an average of 16.2 days. I'm sure you can quickly do the calculations of what that would cost your business, but that brings the total cost of this attack to companies to $180,000, which can be catastrophic to a lot of the companies that are out there. I tried to go out and find some fresh statistics about 2021, and this is the most shocking one that I could find. Cybercrime, the experts estimate a $10.5 trillion cost worldwide on an annual basis by 2025. So the attacks are only going to get more sophisticated. They're going to be honing in. That 35% target to the small and medium business, I would assume, is getting ready to go higher. And I've brought my friend Tucker today to kind of walk through what do networks look like today, how are we evolving with those threats, and then of course, what should you be thinking about as you're going to the cloud? What happens when you adjust your network, and what measures do we have to start thinking about? So Tucker, do me a favor, buddy, take it away. Reminder, folks, throw things in the Q&A in the chat. I'll be watching that and interrupting Tucker as he's going through this.
Yeah, I also wanted to add that we are going to be able to package this up and send you out a recording of today's webinar. So if you need to send it out to other folks in your organization, you can do so, or friends and family members that might be interested, and we'll post it out on social as well. That's astounding to me, John, that the market's going to be 10.5 trillion. However, I will say in my experience, and unfortunately we have experience with customers that have been unable to access their business management systems that we support due to ransomware, the cost of being down is always, a multiplier of typically more than 2x of the cost of actually getting access back, or rather, hopefully getting access back to their data that they depend on, right, to run their business. And so that's been a really, really important thing for us to talk to customers when they get a ransomware. We're not cybersecurity experts, but our advice is, how much is it going to cost you to be down? Because that always outweighs the cost of the $20,000 to $40,000, what I've seen typically, that they need access back to their server and database.
Yeah, Aaron, I think it's dead on. I think a couple of things about John's slides. One, this number is going to be much greater in 2021 than it was in 2020. We already know that. Just ABS customers alone that have had attacks in the first quarter was dramatically higher than the fourth quarter, and was dramatically higher than the third quarter. So it's been nothing but increasing. And I think your point regarding it ought to be looked at in downtime, not necessarily in what you're paying in ransomware, because that downtime is exponentially larger in loss to a company than it is just the ransomware itself. Great point. So how do you tackle that? And I think ransomware is definitely the what we're dealing with a lot today, and the way folks are uh, getting ransomware into their networks is by and large via phishing attacks and email attacks. But that's today. And what we want to talk about is more holistically about how do you create a security framework within your network to address not just the threats we see today, but an ongoing plan to address whatever the threats are, and how do you adapt to that. You know, we follow the NIST framework. NIST is a government framework created by the Commerce Department that really breaks things down into 5 different categories. That first one is identify, and so making sure you understand what your risks are and what protections need to be in place is the first piece of that process. Protect, so how do I defend those risks that I have, and how do I protect those valuable assets that I have in my network? All of that is very important. And then, by the way, protect is where most everybody today spends their money. So the folks that said, I know we have a security strategy, but we don't have it defined, and we don't review it every so often. 9 times out of 10, those companies are spending their money in that protect category and not thinking about the other categories that we have here. At least that's what we find when we're talking with them. Detect is probably the one that is least common and least invested in, and I think that's something we need to work on moving forward. The idea of, do I have techniques in place to identify when a threat does happen? Responding to those impacts when they do occur, and then finally, how do we fully recover our systems when a breach does happen? I think by and large, companies need to move beyond the idea that they can protect 100% of the time. They need to figure out how to detect, respond, and recover very quickly when a threat does happen, because we're just simply, and I hope I show it today and illustrate it today, that it's just really hard now to secure anything and everything within an environment. What I want to do is kind of show you how these frameworks are applied in the real world. And my hope is when I do this, you all will recognize things that apply to your business. I've kind of divided the network into 3 categories: a traditional network, a hybrid network, and a cloud network. And 99% of our customers are somewhere on that continuum, both with Oasis and ABS. I want to show you how you not only are evolving your network, but how your security posture needs to evolve as you're working through those. So kind of the first network, and I'm not going to go deep dive into anything technical today, but I think you'll get the point in this. Is the idea is when I have the traditional office with regular desktop computers, I simply have antivirus on those computers, and I have a firewall that does most of the security work. I have my line of business applications on a server. I control the identity of folks getting access to that network through things like Microsoft's Active Directory. And my email is also sitting in this network on I house that email in-house, and I have a backup solution for all those servers. Stepping away from kind of the technical aspect of that, notice as I kind of walk through all these slides, the entry and exit points of the network. In this case, there is a single entry and exit point. So for us infrastructure guys and us security guys, this is a fairly easy network to secure. So I only have that single point of entry, and I need to make sure I have it very secure. So when I apply the NIST framework to this kind of network, it's fairly easy. I do a assessment annually to make sure that I have the ports on the firewall closed, that those PCs are patched, those sort of things. I have a real good solid firewall, and I invest most of my money in this protection area of antivirus and firewall. That firewall helps us with the detect section of the NIST framework, in that it has an intrusion prevention and detection system in it, so that it's letting us know if there are any breaches or issues coming through that firewall. It's inspecting those data packets as they go through that single point of entry. From a response standpoint, I have written recovery procedures that I follow, and I have a rock solid backup solution, including the disaster recovery plan that I've probably written out that I follow if I did have an issue. All of these steps are kind of in our base managed service package. And when I think about when I was hearing John and Aaron talk about their our history as far as our two companies goes, the 25 years at ABS and the 30 years at Oasis, up until let's say 5 and 10 years ago, this is how networks looked. And a lot of you all even still today have a network that's similar to this. And if you're following this basic strategy, you're doing a relatively good job from a security perspective. Unfortunately, most of us have started the transition from that just traditional network model to at least a hybrid model. And I would expect that most everybody that's on the call today fits into this this model, this hybrid model. The difference here is, first off, I've removed the email server out of my internal environment, and I've put it up into the cloud. I assume most everybody has moved to either a Microsoft O365 platform, or maybe Google Mail. But your email is now off-site. It's no longer behind this firewall. You've also probably made changes in that you've added things like mobile devices. So I've gone away from those desktop PCs to now laptops. And what that causes is, notice the difference. Now I don't need to just secure this one entry point into my network. I have lots of entry points into the network. And unfortunately, I also have lots of different other devices that I don't even own. So I've got to also worry about security on things like mobile devices. But my line of business applications, my servers are still on site, and I'm still doing a lot of my work via this one connection back to the network, with the exception of email. Now, remember, one of the first things we started with is, right now, the toughest and most pervasive security threat out there is phishing and email. So how do I secure all that? Well, I've got to look at new solutions now, and I now need to adapt that NIST framework. So it's not just identify. Identify is not just through an annual security assessment. I need to also do things like end user training, so that I can have my human beings be a part of my identify section. I need end users actively looking for threats out there. So we highly recommend implementing some sort of end user training into your security practice. Also identify folks that have access to the system. Remember, I have so many different entry points into the network. I want to minimize those when people leave the environment or are added into the environment. I always need to be auditing who has access to the system. And that's something that's a part of that identify section.
Hey, Tucker, I kind of wanted to chime in on that end user training. My mind used to go to training. I've got to go into a room. I've got to watch some sort of instructor to tell me what I'm supposed to be doing. This is not time-consuming training that we're talking about. It's phishing exercises where we're trying to educate the users how to spot the characteristics of spoofing, where Annette sends Aaron an email saying, I need 10 $100 iTunes gift cards, send me a picture of the back of them, or Falana, send $10,000 to this vendor. We want to stop that stuff from happening with very quick, easy training that's just integrated into their day-to-day.
Yeah, absolutely, John. And I can't stress the importance of it enough. Simply having end users that are watchful will change your security posture dramatically.
It's really difficult to tell those spoofs. I mean, some aren't, right? And we use you guys, and we have that firewall in place that catches a lot of that stuff, but things slip through. And John has kind of educated our Vistage group on some of the very clever tactics that come through. The other thing that we help customers with is in their accounting system, which is where kind of the core of our business stems into other operational functions, is on workflow and approval processes as well. So not only separation of duties, but also making sure that there are approval processes in place, so it's harder to get those payments, out to customers, vendors, whatever the relationship may be, without, or employees, without having some kind of checks and balances in place.
Yeah, great point, Aaron. I mean, when we're talking about this training, it doesn't necessarily have to be a technical type of a discussion, right? It could be just simply that we want to implement for certain transactions over a certain dollar amount, an actual phone call for confirmation. Things along those lines really need to be thought about when you're thinking about your security posture. In that protect mode, on top of the antivirus and firewall, we highly recommend things like a DNS firewall. That sounds kind of technical, but the idea there is I'm moving some of that firewall responsibilities out to the individual devices. So the idea is if somebody has a laptop and they're working from home, or they're on the road or in a coffee shop, they still have firewall protections in those types of places. When we went working at home during the pandemic, a lot of the security features that were back at the office got left at the office. So we're starting to adapt that and implement things like these device-based firewalls that will help secure your environment more. The biggest one, and if somebody takes a technical recommendation away today from these slides, it's multi-factor authentication. If you are not deploying multi-factor authentication in that email space today, talk to somebody tomorrow about doing it. It is just as critical as it gets. And when we're talking about today, the biggest threat being via email, the easiest mitigation solution to help you with email security is multi-factor authentication. That fancy word of MFA and multi-factor authentication just simply means what you do at like your banking sites where they text you a code, things along those lines. You don't have to do that every time you check your email. Once you've entrusted your device, you won't have to do it again. But it keeps somebody who, if they have hacked in and taken your identity and taken your email account over, they will have to authenticate a second way besides just having your password, and therefore are kind of blocked for having access to your email and propagating throughout your environment via that email account. So critical thing. We spend a lot of time talking to customers about implementing MFA. It is a big must, and the big add in the protect column when we're thinking about moving to cloud-based email. The next one is detect, and the fancy schmancy word for this is security event information management. All I want you to think about here is the idea of real-time monitoring on your network. We're simply looking for threats in real time. The efficiency and ability for antivirus to catch everything these days just isn't there anymore. The 0-day threats that are occurring, where a lot of times there are threats out there that the security things don't know about. We have to be looking for patterns and behavior, and these event management systems are looking in real time for those kinds of threats. And from a response standpoint, those same systems are containing and quarantining devices that appear to have some kind of security issue, so that your IT department or ABS can look at those and make sure that there's not a threat that's happening right away. One of the interesting things when we put these solutions in, 70% of the customers that we have implemented a SIM solution, we've found a latent threat. The threats today are not just active as soon as they happen. They sit in your network and propagate throughout your network, so the impact is greatest when they go live. So when we put these types of systems into a customer, we again see 70% of the time there was some sort of latent threat in the network. Really critical to at least be exploring these types of solutions, because it's 24/7 monitoring of your network. Finally, backup and disaster recovery is the way that you recover from a security event. And it's no longer just okay to have a backup. Ask your IT department, ask your IT vendor if they're also looking for malware within your backups. So the idea is, if I had a crypto or a ransomware event happen, I want to make sure that the backups I go to are clean, that I haven't also backed up the ransomware within my backup data. And then finally, we are recommending anybody and everybody to talk to your insurance company. Make sure that you do have at least a cybersecurity rider on your business insurance, or look at a separate policy for cybersecurity insurance.
Tucker, before you move on, what we're seeing, cybersecurity companies, or insurance companies, companies who are like law firms, healthcare, their customers, their insurance providers are asking them, are you doing these things? It's starting to look like it's going to prevent people from doing business if they don't have them, prevent them from getting the proper cybersecurity insurance policies. That 435% increase that I told you guys about earlier, insurance paid through the nose. We all know that they hate doing that. So they're making companies do this, so they're mitigating their risks. And if you haven't invested in your backup, since I was your technician 10 years ago, you don't have the right backup. So this is what every company should be looking at. Maybe not so much in that detect area, as long as you don't disagree there, Tucker, but everything else that he's put on the screen, every company that cares about rebuilding their business after a disaster, you should be looking into all of these items.
Yeah, a couple of things here. Let's understand that everything in black is still applies. So we're just building upon the security posture. There are always going to be things in this detect category along the lines of intrusion prevention and detection with your firewalls that you still need no matter what. We're just adding layers as we go through this transition and through this process as we look at the various types of networks. So, but John's point is valid in that I've probably worked with a half a dozen customers in the last couple of months, responding to insurance companies' requests, questionnaires, audits, whatever you want to call them. Before they're writing policies, they want to know what you've implemented in these areas. And the higher the policy amount, the more things like these SIM solutions or written response plans are demanded by the insurance company. So it's not just about compliance, it's also about what kind of insurance policy that you're wanting as well.
Tucker, Russ has kind of teed me up for something that's very important. He says, I understand that their malware lays dormant for up to 60 days, then goes active. So the backups are impacted. How do you combat against that? I want to answer that, and then you add to anything that I missed, Tucker. That's actually a really amazing question, Russ. That is what the ransomware method is, and they've tweaked that over the years to encrypt your backup first before they impact your production area. They do that because they don't want you to use your backup to recover. They want to put you in a position where you can't do anything but give them the thousands and thousands of dollars that they're asking for. So how do you combat against that, Russ? You look at something like, we're big fans of a solution called Datto. Datto is a device that is completely separate from your production environment. It has different credentials than anything that is used in your Windows area or your Office 365. It also sends things up to the cloud. So you have all these recovery options. It has that anti-malware detection. So while they're sitting there latent for 60 days, we have things that are detecting. Would you put this in the detect area a little bit, Tucker?
Yeah, sure. Absolutely. Yeah, good call.
That Datto device is alerting companies like ABS or your internal IT department that, hey, we're seeing some signs of ransomware. You need to go look into this. So modernizing your backup and investigating, do I have that protection, is the first thing, Russ, that I'd tell you to do.
If it's Russ that I'm thinking about, Russ, be happy because you do have that in place today. But
it's not the Russ I think you're thinking about. Russ Rose is the gentleman's name.
All right. I'm not looking at the chat window, but in any case, we can certainly help you there. But the idea, just simply put, is your backup target, where you're backing up, needs to have something similar to your production environment, where you have a software looking for malware within those backups. Is kind of the critical piece there. So we've talked about hybrid. I think the other quick thing that I want to mention here is we are seeing the evolution of ransomware too. As companies are getting better and better at backup, you are able to restore without paying the ransom. So what the bad actors are doing is they are sitting in your network even longer and downloading and taking a lot of your data, copying a lot of your data. So just because you can recover your systems after being asked for a ransom, they will then hold you hostage and say, your sensitive data we're going to release on the dark web unless you pay the ransom. So it's not just about this recovery piece from one of those attacks. It's also about, I need to be able to detect it very quickly. I need to be able to contain it very quickly so that they aren't copying information when I don't even know that they're in my system. So just be aware of that, think about it, know what your risks are if data is copied. Segment your data, at least from a thought process, into what's valuable, what's not, and think about your security posture around that very sensitive data. So the next piece of the puzzle, or the next space on the continuum, is a purely cloud network. I know that the guys at Oasis start to have conversations with you about moving the ERP and your financial solutions to the cloud. When I start to do that, I also start to move things like storage to the cloud or HR to the cloud. And when I do those types of applications and I start to move everything that used to be sitting on these servers up into the cloud, all of a sudden there's really not a need for those servers. So I want you to watch as I remove that single entry point into the network. And now all of a sudden, everybody has the ability to go directly to those applications in the cloud. Well, now I've lost a lot of the security features that I had. Now, don't get me wrong. You may still have that firewall in the office when folks come into the office, but we all know that we've all been working from home. And when I do move to this cloud environment, I am not going through that firewall to get to my cloud apps. I'm just going directly to those cloud apps. So now I need to extend that cloud beyond just the line of business applications that are into the cloud, but I need to also move a lot of my management of my network into the cloud as well. And so we do that through a couple of different products. There are other solutions out there as well, but I am thinking about things like Active Directory in the cloud. So the idea of making sure that this end user is who he says he is, and he has access to the correct applications I want him having access to, is done through Active Directory. I am doing things like I don't just have those desktops anymore. Now I don't care what the end user device is. I wish I had a poll up to ask how many folks have CEOs have said, I don't want that Windows laptop anymore. I love Mac, or I want to use my tablet, or I want to use my Androids. All of those different devices are different security threats. Not that they're any more or less secure than the Windows laptop on the desk, but I've got just different things that I need to think about with all those devices. I also have many, many more entry points into the network. So many of us have more than one device. We used to have a slide, John, where we talked about that as well, where there are 4 times as many devices as there are end users in the world. So I've got to think about security, not just that single point of entry. I've got to think about it from all these different entry points. And finally, there's no reason to have backup on site. I need to be thinking about not just backing up my servers anymore, but all the critical the information that's up here in all these cloud apps. You know, my assumption is if you've moved to Office 365, you're not just using the traditional applications like Outlook and Word and Excel, but you're starting to use things like OneDrive for your personal storage, or SharePoint sites for files. All of those things need to be thought about. How do I back them up? Do I want Microsoft handling both production and backup? Do I want that information in various different sites? The same goes for your cloud applications. How am I backing up that data and making sure that I have it and it's secure? More importantly, am I making sure that all these various connections are legitimate? So that OneDrive example I gave you, I can share documents with John and Aaron, give them access to a file, but then I forget I've given them access to it. And 6 months later, a year later, I'm dumping more information into those file folders that I may or may not want Aaron or John having access to. How do I audit that? How do I make sure that I am securing all my data? It's not just about a cybersecurity threat. It's about, do I have the right folks having information to the right things? So as I think about those security strategies in a pure cloud environment, I'm also adding asset management, things like those laptops that went home, how much personal data, how much high-risk data is sitting on those laptops. I want to know where those laptops are when I have an employee leave. I want to make sure that asset comes back into the fold. I want to audit my cloud applications, things like OneDrive. I want to audit who has access to what files on a regular basis. And I want to create a true risk management strategy where I'm not just looking at this during the annual security assessment, but I'm always watching my security posture and the change of that security posture. In the protection piece, I want to extend MFA beyond just email and do it for all those cloud applications. So when Aaron's talking to you about moving to NetSuite or Sage in the cloud, I want to make sure an MFA solution goes along with that. The antivirus can't capture all those threats out there. So I want to move beyond just antivirus, include some zero-day endpoint protection into the solution. Mobile device management, if I am moving to that BYOD strategy of people being able to use their own devices, I want to make sure I understand what data they have on their personal devices and how I can control it. And finally, data loss prevention is our solutions we look at to make sure folks aren't emailing or sending sensitive data, personal information out that we don't want out there in the real world. So the example there is if I try to email a social security number or a credit card number, I want systems in place that block that immediately. In the detect framework, I am taking that real-time event monitoring, watching my network on a real-time basis, seeing real-time threats. I want to include my cloud applications in that real-time monitoring. So I am watching Sage or NetSuite and making sure that there aren't threats that are being attacked into my instance in the cloud with those kinds of applications. And from a response standpoint, I'm moving to a business continuity and protection planning. So security isn't just about that phishing and that cyber security thing. You know, do tabletop exercises with your team. What happens if the CEO's social media has been hacked? What happens if a disgruntled employee starts to write Google reviews that aren't right about your business? You know, things along those lines really need to be thought about in a security realm. And how do we create a plan that addresses these, that has a playbook on addressing things like those threats? And then in that recovery piece, again, I'm not just backing up that data that's on site, but I'm backing up my cloud apps, and potentially I'm looking at ways I back up my end user data, that Teams environment or the OneDrive, the Dropbox environment. What kind of sensitive data is now propagated out into those spaces that I need to make sure I have copies of later on?
Hey, Tucker.
Don, I've been doing a lot of talking. Maybe why don't you kind of talk through some of the things, if we kind of create an umbrella around all that, takeaways that I think folks
I definitely will, and we are coming close to time. Do me a quick favor, Tuck. Go back one.
Yeah, sure.
Russ is chiming in with some really great questions. Do or can you perform tests where you invite or attempt to attract some sort of infiltration to see if you can recover? Yes, ABS can do that, Russ. I don't know if that's what you're asking, but that is a loaded question. Security, think of security, cybersecurity, like you would secure your house. How far do you realistically need to go? I literally installed a doorbell cam in front of my house. I never thought that I needed one of those, but I could put all kinds of things to protect my house. But what I do is, what's my risk? How far do I need to invest in this? How far do I need to go? So an example, we recommend you do an annual security assessment. That would include that vulnerability scanning, but we're only doing that once a year. The results of that assessment could say, your company, Russ, you're bound by some sort of a compliance, maybe your HIPAA, maybe your FINRA, where they want you or they require you to be able to pick that up in real time, so that SIM solution and that detect area Tucker's been talking about, that can happen in real time. And it's that assessment that really tells us, what do we need to do to protect our businesses? Where's my risk tolerance as a business? I hope that answered your question there and gave a little bit more than you were asking for. Tucker, anything you'd add?
We're seeing that request more and more, John, particularly from compliance and insurance, where not only the tabletop exercises that I was kind of talking about, where you're sitting down with your team and you're suggesting a scenario and how would we deal with it, but truly mimicking an attack and figuring out how you respond. Much the way we do a DR test, you also do a security test as well, to make sure that you understand how you're responding and learn from those tests so that you can adapt your plan afterwards. It's a great suggestion and great idea there from Russ, for sure. And we're seeing more and more of those kinds of things. To John's point, there's a lot of you on the call that don't need to do those things. It's all about where you are on this continuum we walk through today, and making sure you identify where you are, what the risks you have, and how you want to deal with those. It's all customized by business, for sure.
All right, so the takeaways, very common misconception when you go to the cloud is Microsoft is taking care of that for me. And when I say that, I mean backups. I mean that they're securing my Microsoft environment. To a certain extent, they are. There's a great a diagram, Tucker, I wish we would have put this in here, where Microsoft says, we're responsible for this, and you're responsible for this, Mr. and Mrs. Customer. So just know that the general notion, no matter who your cloud provider is, they're not covering all of your risks when it comes to cybersecurity, which includes backup.
And I don't want to mitigate that idea either. You know, when Aaron takes you to NetSuite in the cloud or Sage in the cloud, great security around that platform, high uptime, SOC 2 compliant, all the stuff that you need, and more than you could ever spend on security.
Yeah.
But you have to change your thinking on, who am I granting access into that highly secure environment?
Yeah, down to the way that we set up the roles and permissions for each end user and their ability to read and edit data. And multi-factor authentication is out of the box with those applications as well. So, you know, we've got security questions, like if you're logging into your bank from a different device. There's also the ability to add like a Google Authenticator, which gives you a code that times out that you have to enter. Those types of multi-factor authentication options are out there. The frequency of which you're required to change your password. IP whitelisting is even an option too. So you can actually even access the application if you're not from a registered device. So all those things are in place, and that's where at that application level, we've got a lot of experience on helping implement best practices for our customers.
So Aaron, I think you added about 4 more options to the options that Tucker put out. And there are options. It's, what does your company need? You guys always start with that identify part. Where are my vulnerabilities? What am I doing today? What am I not doing? How do I stay out of that 35% statistic of small to medium businesses falling victim to this? They're always working to get around those things. It's never foolproof. It's the constant battle of good and evil, been going on since I was a young technician. But to Tucker's point a second ago, Oasis is transforming your network. ABS is transforming your network. What is your security plan that goes with that? How are you securing to the modern threats or your journey to the cloud? Have you looked at your identity management process? When you terminate somebody, are you really calling ABS to let them know? Believe it or not, that happens. We come for a strategic meeting. Oh, we let that person go. We go back and check. Nobody told us about it. The access is still available. That is a huge threat to your business, especially if it's disgruntled.
Well, and let's take that a step further, John, in the sense of now I have all these cloud applications. You know, it used to be I just granted access to the network and not. And you're right. There are times where we have folks that don't even let us know that. But have I turned off Dropbox? Have I turned off access to ADP? Have I turned off the entry points to NetSuite? All
Email.
those things. Identity management is much broader today than just access to the network.
Exactly.
Yeah, having a comprehensive offboard checklist that's organic as you add applications and access points is something I know your team is more than capable of helping with, and they've helped us do that too.
So security, the plan can always be improved, refined, test and push the organization, review it at least annually, seek advice from others, talk to your CEO and CFO friends of other companies. What are they doing? Just work to educate yourself. ABS would love to talk to you about what you're doing and give you some direction or even give you some support. And the last thing that I'd like to leave with you folks is cybersecurity insurance is a must. It not only will help pay for the ransom, they will also help negotiate, but it also pays for the cost that you would pay a company like ABS to do the recovery work. You'd end up doing things like re-imaging every single workstation that you have to make sure the threats are completely removed, rebuilding server infrastructure. They'll even pay for you to harden your network if you don't have some of these firewalls in place or some of these advanced features. They'll help you pay for it not to happen again. But the damage is done and the headaches will be there at that point. Go ahead and do some of these protection things we're talking about, but add cybersecurity insurance. A lot of people have told us, Tucker has been involved in our account management. I see a lot of prospects in our accounts as well. I have general liability. My general liability covers that. It's not enough. From what I understand, most of that is about 50,000 to 100,000. It's not enough. Go look for a cybersecurity insurance policy. Again, understand your all's risks and protect yourselves. Anything I missed there, Tuck?
I don't think so, John. Aaron, I appreciate the opportunity today.
Hey guys, really appreciate you sharing all your knowledge with our joint customers and maybe some prospective customers as well. Thank you all for attending. Again, we're going to package this up nicely for you, send it out in an email follow-up. We'd love some feedback from that too. And if you want to get in touch with John, Tucker, or myself, we'll have all of our contact information there to share as well. So everybody have a great afternoon. Thanks for joining, and hopefully we'll see you again soon.
Bye, everybody. Thank you.
Thanks,
Take care.
everybody.